Hi, I'm Aaron Cox, and this is my Module 16 case study, Internet Use Violations for EDL 850. The problem, what do I know? Well, I broke it down based off of the two main school personnel involved in the case and then also the students. Now, with Miss Walker, what we know is that she's a first-year teacher that wants to maintain a structured, rigorous classroom, which has led to a lot of student and parent complaints and led to some unrest with the students in her classroom. Now, we know that, we know that she was sent an email that asked about making her disappear, which was a veiled threat, and the website and also contained comments that were derogatory towards Miss Walker. Miss Walker believes the email was sent by Randy Franks. She doesn't have any evidence that supports this, but she does think that he's been a ringleader as far as making rude comments and having misbehavior in her classroom. Now, Dr. Forbes, what we know is that he is the principal for this school, and it is a high academic achieving school that has a very affluent family background for many of the students. He wants to maintain the high integrity that the school has, and he also chose to handle the email internally and will meet with Miss Walker in the morning, which I think this could be problematic, which we'll talk about later on. Another issue that I know is that Dr. Forbes will talk to Randy Franks about the email with no evidence that Randy sent the email. The questioning is purely based on Miss Walker saying that Randy is good with technology and has had misbehaviors in her classroom, which this is one of the things that we know about the students. Also, the students as a whole have repeatedly complained about Ms. Walker's teaching style, and also most students want to achieve a high grade in her classes, which I think these two things combine to show that there is multiple students that may have done this or may have felt like they needed to do something like this, not just Randy. The problem, what I need to know. Number one, I need to know who sent the email, and obviously this is the number one question, but it's not as simple as it seems. The whole point of this issue is to figure out who did it, but obviously make sure that we follow ethics and take a legal stance. That way Dr. Forbes is the principal and the school district cannot be held liable later on. And then I also want to know, did they interview Randy? Dr. Forbes and Ms. Walker planned on questioning him, so I assume that it happened. But in my opinion, this is very problematic. They don't have any evidence to support the reason for questioning, and all it does is put Randy on the defensive, and if he didn't have any involvement in it, then this would obviously upset him and his parents, but also it provides them an avenue for a possible suit later on. Now, did Dr. Forbes notify any law enforcement agency? The facts in this case study, to me, are pointing to Dr. Forbes handling this on his own, and I think that's a big mistake. Number one, I think it shows that he's not taking the email very serious, and so I think that this could become a liability issue for him later on. So I've already touched on the problems that I foresee in this case study, but what I did is I broke it up into two different groups, ethical and liability problems. So let's start with ethical. First of all, I would try to figure out the severity level of the email to ensure protection of Ms. Walker. In this case study, to me, the most important thing is ensuring safety for everyone involved. And obviously, Ms. Walker is the target of this, so I want to make sure that she is safe and no harm no bodily harm comes to her. Now, the decision on whether to notify the police or handle it in-house, I think to me you have to notify the police. We know based off of current events and a lot of the issues that have been happening in our country today, you can't overlook any threat whatsoever. And the third thing would be trying to find evidence of who sent the email in a manner that is ethical and fair for all involved. So to build on that, I mean, obviously I just talked about the importance of taking this threat seriously, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you go about finding the offender in a fair and just way. And obviously that helps to provide that confidentiality and that equality for everybody, but also it helps to prevent any liability problems, which takes me to my next examples. First, Dr. Forbes choosing not to notify the police, I think, is a major issue, and it's something that could turn into a liability issue if Miss Walker was injured by a student. So that's probably the biggest problem. Also, another issue would be questioning Randy without any evidence of wrongdoing. Like I touched on earlier, you can't accuse or question somebody without having any reasons or evidence to back that up. And I taught law enforcement last year, so I understand that a student under 18 also has some rights that many teachers, many administrators aren't aware of. What I mean by that is if you're going to question somebody in relation to a crime and they're a minor, you need to have parent permission first, and it needs to be done a certain way and handled a certain way. So this, like I said, could become very problematic. So with all those things said, I tried to put together a plan of action that does get to the bottom of who sent the email, protect Miss Walker, and then also do it in a way that's ethically and legally correct. Now, with step one, I would notify the superintendent. I believe the email has to be taken seriously, and as the building administrator, my superior is the superintendent, and this is an issue that is a threat to a district staff member, which I think is a major issue, and the superintendent needs to be aware of all important district matters. So I will let him know. The second thing I would do is report the email to the police. Like I said, any threat needs to be taken seriously, and it will help protect Ms. Walker and protect the school district from liability if something were to happen. And then step three, I would record the email and URL information for evidence for any law enforcement party that needs it, and then also for my own records as well. And then I would call Miss Walker that night to ensure her that I did notify the police and the superintendent. That way she understands that something is being done, and we are taking her safety seriously. Step four, I would meet with Ms. Walker before school, once again, just to ensure that something's being done and to help her feel safe. Then I would meet with the superintendent and school resource officers. To me, these are really the two most important people as far as helping me develop a plan of action and knowing the legality of the issue, both from the school district standpoint and then also from the law enforcement standpoint as well. The next thing is I would notify the staff, school personnel, teachers. We know that they're around the students the most, and a lot of times they built these relationships, and students will give them information, tell them things that administrators don't know. So by notifying the staff, number one, you alert them, and then also you may be able to get provided with tips or information that will help you. Step 7, I would interview all the students that have Ms. Walker as a teacher, and I would ask them all the same questions, and they would be basic questions about the incident and then about the classroom. And this is so that no student is judged differently than anybody else. No student has any accusations put on them. The next thing would be to notify the parents, and this is something that I learned from my current principal. We don't have a lot of major issues that develop in Mill Valley, but I think a lot of it is because of the proactive stance that's taken by our administrators. And one thing that our principal does is, if there is any issue, he will send out an email to the parents, and it's very brief, but it outlines the basic facts. And I think it's effective because it prevents the rumor mill from getting started. It prevents inaccurate information from being passed around, and it seems to be very effective. So I would do something very similar. Step 9, I would follow up on any information that is learned from talking to administration, teachers, students, staff, and law enforcement. And then from there, if anybody is caught, I will take the appropriate action needed. Now, solutions for student success. These are all things that I've hit on a lot through my steps, but just some of the highlights. I think it's very important that student and staff safety is upheld, so I don't want to take any threats lightly. So I think deferring to the professionals when it comes to law enforcement would be the importance of letting the police know and let them handle the investigation. All right, what was I thinking, feeling, and valuing? Number one, I was thinking that Dr. Forbes needs to take the email more seriously and not try to handle it on his own. Also, Dr. Forbes needs to get other opinions for a plan of action. That's where I think me using the superintendent and the school resource officer is so important. I would also get the other administration involved because I think it's important to have as many opinions as possible. That helps keep out biases and come up with that solid plan of action. And then I was feeling frustrated that Dr. Forbes said he would question Randy. I've talked about that one quite a bit, but that can be very problematic. And I think my former law enforcement teaching experience has helped me value and understand the importance of providing a safe learning environment for all. The issues that are still unresolved, there's a lot of them, but number one, how was the question handled? Who sent the email? And then did Dr. Forbes take the threat seriously? Now, looking at category 5, with integrity and ethics, I'm going to hit on the main one. I think it's important to develop a plan of action that was ethical and considered safety and liability for all parties involved. With fair and equitable treatment, the biggest thing would be to, like I said, involve the superintendent and the assistant principals and the school resource officer. I can't say it enough. It would lessen the chance for biased viewpoints and allow for the exchange of multiple ideas. And then lastly, the code of ethics. I think that everything that I've talked about kind of fits with the code of ethics, and just making sure that you handle this with integrity and try to provide as much confidentiality for everybody involved as possible, but at the same time also try to figure out who did it. And so at times that means you're going to have to allow your school to be in the media, and maybe your prestige takes a hit a little bit, but at the same time it's important to make sure that you keep Ms. Walker safe and are able to give consequences to the person that did it. So that is my case study. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.